My name is Pravina Makan-Lahka. I'm an advisor on women, peace and security at Accord. And I have been working in the area of an Institute of Peace and Security for the past 25 years. But I've always been working with civil society, and I found myself at a good time in my own country's history. I'm South African, and I grew up in apartheid South Africa. And so having grown up in apartheid South Africa, I went to university at the height of South Africa's resistance and transformation. So in doing that, I found my activism in university. And I've always championed women's equality, women's rights. Why are we left out of leadership positions? So that became clear, and then inequality because of being in a South African context. So I've used that consciousness and conscientization that I got at university to pursue my career. And so let me first say that there's not a homogeneous response for Africa. We're talking about 54 countries. We're talking about regions that, we know that the regions were developed by putting a ruler down and drawing a line. So you have already divided and have borders where there were no natural differences between the two societies. They coexisted previously, they worked amongst each other. Pastoralists knew that during the rainy season we go over to that area, agriculturists come to this side. So there was a natural, cohesion of society and the workings of society. So some of those have been altered by the histories and colonial past and just the politics at play. So that would be my first point, that you need to understand you're talking about 54 different countries. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when you look into a country, it is important to understand the histories of, the histories pre-colonial history. So understand the role of women in the pre-colonial histories. That is important because you will know whether it's a matriarchal or a patriarchal society. And that gives you an insight for how you will strategize going forward, because it allows you to know, do I focus on the woman entry point? Do I focus on the patriarchy point? So that's, your first entry point. The second one is to understand what those conflicts are about, analyzing those conflicts. And we always say, analysis of conflicts, and then they say, that's so theoretical. And I always say a good intervention starts with a very good analysis. If you are not, and if you don't understand who the parties are, you don't understand what the issues are, you don't understand the histories of these issues, it is very difficult that you will end up with sustainable interventions. You will intervene, you will record good program results by saying, we had an objective to go in and convene women, we had an objective to train 50 women, we had an objective to train in the following areas, understanding conflict, where do women, what is the histories of women's involvement in conflict, and you will come out with a fantastic project. But that will not be enough. It will have some effect, but you would not have approached this strategically and with the fundamentals in place. So that's my first one, the good analysis when you go on. What you see in the capital of the country versus what is at the local and national level is very different. So I think you must be alive of that, because we often romanticize when we arrive in a country and our own, narratives of how we have read about the country. Wow, the capital has buildings. Wow, there's streets here. It's so beautiful. It's so romantic. I'll sit in the cafe. I'll have a drink with friends here. The sun is setting on the area. The dust is in the area. It's so beautiful. That is nothing of what it is like in the community. The communities, the travel to that sometimes is only once a month. The travel to city centers, for some, has not even taken place. So I think that's an important point, to go into communities and rather hear it from the words of the community instead of saying, is this what it is? So your problems are cultural, also your problems are racial, so your problems are, ethnicity. Do not mention those words. Hear what the words are and what is being said. Those are very important points in terms of going into a community. And normally you would find, or generally I would say, you would find in the capitals there will be women organizations, or there will be individuals who will have had access to the spaces of, global dialogue, or have been invited to conferences. So they will know what the issues are. But it will be difficult to understand whether that is throughout the whole country. And I think then you must understand what the different areas are looking like in terms of, do they understand the WPS agenda? And what does the WPS agenda mean in many countries? I know we often talk about, there is this Women, Peace and Security set of policies, and this gives us the comprehensive agenda on responding to, but it's not so in the situation of, the Africa context, always that we look at the Women, Peace and Security agenda separate from our own everyday existence. The Women, Peace and Security is ingrained in our everyday existence in the Africa context, because it is a conflict context. The political space is about, governance that is challenged, about, movement, infrastructure, challenges. So those realities do prevent us from saying, is a separate tool. So I think the Women, Peace and Security agenda in the Africa context is almost ingrained in what we have every day. It's not separate, and we see it as a way of transforming where we find ourselves, both from a gender equality point of view, but also from taking leadership, participation, and shaping that change that we want to see, please. And so I think for women peacekeepers, try and understand the realities of women from the country that you're serving. Be aware, be able to understand and get an understanding of the history, the understanding of their own struggles, where they find themselves. You have to also be careful that if you are a gender activist, that you don't start to promote that and feel you're not doing enough as women. Yes, you have an opportunity to transform, and that's where the developmental peacekeeping comes in. You could use that agenda to, educate, conscientize, help them organize, because you know that. But you got to understand that that is more than what your role as a peacekeeper would be, We would like to know that you can do that, because you do have the opportunity and the access to these spaces, and you are there for, long periods of time. So assisting a community do that, it would really be, innovative. It would be really using entry points, I think, to transform that space.